Okay, I thought I'd include this just because, well, to kind of show you that teachers make mistakes as well. But basically, this is not one of my better pieces of code at all. This is a really basic keyboard I did quite a while ago when we started making the Enigma machine in class, and I was getting used to Pygame. But what we've got here is we've got a keyboard, and if you press keys, they appear. So it creates the illusion of, you know, a calculator, that sort of thing. You can press delete. A lot of the code went into this idea that if you keep going, so I've given you the access to this code so you can have a look. If you keep going and it fills, I thought, oh, it'd be cool if the text got smaller. Okay, so the text will get smaller and smaller as you fill it up, and then obviously you can delete and it goes back. My advice is don't do that. It's a horrendous thing to do, and it would have been much better if I just done it. If you keep typing, maybe these letters, while they retain, they just don't display, and it creates the illusion of it sort of sliding along almost. That would have been much better. I think visually would have looked much better, and it would have been easier from a code point of view as well. But anyway, so that's all this is. So to go over some of the codes, like I said, I'm not going to go through and explain everything to do with object-oriented. I'm just going to go over the key things, and also, like I say, it's not the finest bit of code in the world at all, but it gives you a bit of a starting point if you want to work with buttons or with a keyboard. So I've got all my letters at the top. They're in the order they appear on the keyboard, or I want them to appear. So you can see it's like QWERTY. I think I just copied it out off my keyboard in front of me. I've got a key object where I pass it a letter and a start position. Notice that this is actually a Pygame sprite, which is an inbuilt class in Pygame that you can use that has loads of extra sort of features to a traditional object you'll make yourself. Quite useful quite a lot of the time, especially for detecting things like collisions and stuff like that. So I've got a sort of start position. I've given every key a letter. It's got an image which is just a button, which is what the little square grey things are. It's got a boolean for whether it's clicked or not, and it's got a rect. A rect is like a rectangle. If you imagine there was a rectangle over your object, you can do self.image.getRect, and you can help you get X and Y positions and things like that. And then this is an if statement that works out the starting positions of the letters based on their index positions in the list. So basically, you know how when it displays, it's going to display as a keyboard, not one on top of another. So I've done stuff like the starting Y position, self.rect.y is the starting Y position of the whole thing, plus the height of the rectangle times by the index of the letter at a certain position, times by the width divided by size at position 0, and then something similar with the X. And if that's not true, otherwise it does that. Self.rect.y equals the start position for the very first one. Self.rect.x equals letters.index at letters.index of the letter. Alright, you're indexing the letter, times by the width. So basically, to try and, I can't draw on here, but if you try and imagine the first one, let's say they're 50 by 50, I can't remember what size the image is. The first one you want to start at position 0 because it's 50 on the X coordinates, and the second one, because it's at index 1, you want it to start at 1 times 50, 50. The third one, you want to times it by 0, 1, 2, so 2 times the index position 2 times 50 is 100, and it will start at X coordinates of 100, and a similar idea for the Y positions to work out the rows. Okay, so yeah, that's how I was doing it, just sort of dynamically creating the X and Y positions of these as you go along. You've then got text box context as empty string that we're using at the top. We've got a text box class, which again is a constructor. It's got font size, color, a rect in a rect, which just takes away a little bit of a border around the edge. And it's got a character limit. I don't know if I ended up using that or not, but I was going to limit it to a character. And then it's got a draw function to draw it to the screen, a draw method, sorry. Right, now we've got a key list which equals a pygame.sprite group, .sprite.group. That is a little bit like a list, but for holding sprites, and it gives you some other properties. I'm not sure which I prefer, to be honest, but when you're using sprites, it's quite common that you'll see them be put into these sprite groups. And then all I'm doing is I'm adding, for every letter in my letters list at the top, which is all the letters in the keyboard, I am creating a key, and I'm passing it that letter and giving it a size of 50, or a start Y. I can't remember what that was. Yeah, start Y. So I'm giving it a letter and a start Y. So it loops through these and basically creates a sprite for each one and adds it to that sprite group. Now in here, one sec, door's knocking. Sorry, there's someone at the door. Good job, you can pause this. I can't remember where I was. Main loop, probably. Right, so main loop, we've done that stuff at the top before. Let's go through this. So if you press the mouse button, you get in the position of the mouse. Right, okay, so if you press the mouse button, you get the position of the mouse for key and key list. So we loop through every key sprite we've made. If it collides, so if the key.rect.collide point with our position, basically if your mouse is over it. So if you clicked your mouse and you're over one of the buttons, then we change the key's image. Every key's got an image, and I've got two versions of the image. I've got a button pressed and a button, and if you wanted to look at the PNGs, they're just like, one of them's got a sort of tiny shadow, which makes it look like it's been pressed down. And I turn key click to true. If the key I've pressed is del, which is the delete key, if the key's letter is del, then I'm taking one away from the text box contents. Okay, so it's effectively deleting something from the text box. Otherwise, I'm adding the key. If it's not del, it's obviously a letter I want to add, or a space or whatever. I'm adding that to the text box. If I then release the mouse button, so mouse button up, do the same sort of thing. So for key and key list, if key.clicked is not equal to false, then set it back to being looking like a normal button and setting key click to false. So obviously if you release the mouse, every button hasn't been pressed, so it just loops through, and any button that where it's detected it was pressed, it turns it to unpressed and sets the button back. So that's how you create that little effect. And then down here, so fill the screen black, draw my text box, key list.draw, so it loops through every sprite in that sprite group and draws them. And then what have we got here? For key in key list, it sets the font. See, this is part of the code I didn't really like. I should have done this inside the class, but this is where I'm drawing the letters over in the right position. So I'm blitting for every key in the key list, I'm blitting the text on top. I should have just done that inside the I should have created like a draw method and done it inside there, but it works anyway. Where I'm doing this key to decide where to draw the text, I'm finding the rect of the key, and then I'm taking away, I'm looking at what the width of the key is. So let's say it's 50 pixels wide. I need to take away the width of the text itself and divide it by 2, because I want it to display in the middle of the key. And I'm doing the same for the Y position to make sure it dynamically, whatever the letter is or a couple of letters I pass it will always display in the middle of the key. Then this bit here, set the font. So the reason I'm saying setting the font is so I can do stuff like I can get the width and height. And then this is the bit that is really horrible, is I'm looping through. So if the width of the text, so let's say I wrote the word because in my keyboard, if the width of the word because is greater than the inner rectangle of the text box, then I'm going to keep looping through and reduce the font size. So I will keep reducing the font size and then re-changing what the font is. I'll keep reducing the font size until it fits, and the same backwards. So I'll increase the font size if it becomes too small. Okay, and then I blit it to the screen, and that's it. So just now I've gone through that because it's quite a long video. I'll just show you very briefly again. So you can see when I press a key, you can see the button's changed, and when I let go, it loops for everyone and turns it off. So button change, turn it off. Okay, so you can see that works, creates a nice little effect. And you can see if I do loads, it will keep looping, and when it's changed size, look, it it will keep changing size with that while loop until it fits in the rectangle every time before it blitzes to the screen. Okay. Like I say, there's a few things I feel like I could have done much better in there, but at least it gives you an idea on how you could potentially approach something like a keyboard.